for, this is what democracy looks like.
Yeah, right.
And that's the one thing is I try to remind everybody, certainly, we want to get people of color elected. But the thing is, we also want to get people that are going to represent our values.
Yes.
So one of the things I did, canvassing and dropping everything last year was I'd see strong Dems, and some of you have heard this, there's strong Dems, but I see a John James sign in their yard. And go talk to folks and say, wait a minute, if you're a strong Democrat, why is that? And the thing they would say, usually is, well, he looks like me. So that's why I'm supporting him. I said, well, there's an old saying, skin folk ain't always kin folk. That's what we want to make sure of, because the thing is, that's I mean, that's right, I'm an old man, so I remember all this. But it's something but this is something that's important, is that we all work together. And the one thing the caucus is, we're a Democratic club. We're going to support Democrats. So I like what people say. Let's work together. Let's get people elected, and let's move Warren, East Point, and most of all, Macomb County forward.
Yes.
Because we have to make change.
Yes.
We do. And I know one person, one that is truly making change, is our Congressman, Andy Levin.
Yes.
Please, I hope you come up and speak, and perhaps we have some time if you want to take some questions. The one thing I have to say about Congressman Levin is he has truly walked the talk. He has shown that he cares about what us voters care about.
Yes.
When it comes to climate change, when it comes to just, Representative Oman, he stood there, when other people at times didn't. He's shown that he's truly a friend to his constituents, and he's doing what we need for him to do, not just what he needs to do to get elected. And that's something I will always respect. Congressman, thank you for coming here. I appreciate it.
Well, I will leave a lot of time for questions and discussion, or how much time you all have. You probably, it's a beautiful day out there. You can peel off whatever you want, but I'll give you a brief update. I don't have anything formal, but let me just pick up on something you were just saying. We have a lot of people running for president of the United States. In fact, anybody in here running? I heard a lot of announcements. Anybody? Warren City Council, President of the United States. Half my colleagues are running. Anyway, one guy who's running has to get past some hurdles. He's the front runner. I don't have a pick, by the way. But what about what Joe Biden did to help Clarence Thomas get on the Supreme Court? Now, Clarence Thomas is a black man. And there's no one who's done more damage over how many years? 25 years? However many years it's been. Not to mention whatever that mistreatment was of Anita Hill in that hearing. But we do have to have people that share our values. Okay, but I want to, and I'm 100% with that. But I want to start by just celebrating and trying to communicate to you all how amazing it is to be part of this diversity of this class, this biggest new class of House of Representatives since Watergate. You got the first lesbian mom, the first woman doctor, the first 2 Native American women ever, the first of so many things. First African American in the Congress in many whole states or places, like my friend Joe Neguse from Boulder, but he's the first black person to represent Colorado in Congress ever. And there's several, people in that situation. And I just got an email from Ben Ray Lujan, who's the assistant speaker. He's running for U.S. Senate in New Mexico. I got this last night. He said, well, in addition to sending out emails that talk about the town halls and things like this that we all did when the press covers it, they try to show the freshman class activity. He sent one out last night about our bills that we've introduced. The legislate are in our first 3.5 months, 4 months now. And you wouldn't have had these bills if you didn't have this diversity. I'm sorry, you would not have. I saw bills, so a lot of them I'm co-sponsors of, some of them I didn't know about. Like my friend Deb Holland has one about violence against women in Native American, on reservations.
Yeah.
or something. I'm ignorant about that.
Mhm.
She's not. That's her,
That's her wheelhouse.
that's her life. That's her wheelhouse. And so it matters. The diversity matters in the actual bills that are introduced, across for women and people of color of all kinds, LGBTQ people. It's just so important. And, I'm happy to talk about Mueller and all that and the president situation. But I do want to focus on how much we're getting the people's business done. This week we did pass our first climate change bill out of the House. Say, Mr. President, we're not getting out of the Paris Accord. And we need to move forward aggressively on battling climate change. Not only that, we will have, because of this caucus and who we are, even though Speaker Pelosi is great on this and she worked on it before, but still this new energy, we will have a big focus on climate justice, on who gets those jobs, and on realizing who's going to be most affected first and making sure we help them. So we passed that. We've passed several pieces of sensible gun reform legislation. To close the Charleston loophole, to have universal background checks. We passed out of, I'm on the Education Labor Committee, the vice chair. We passed out of our committee a national $15 an hour minimum wage by 2024. And talk about justice and who really is most likely to make the minimum wage, unless it ends the idea of sub-minimum wages for tipped workers, who are overwhelmingly women and mostly women of color, disproportionately women of color. And so we're moving on a lot of different fronts. But in terms of the president, the Mueller report is long. It's tough to get through. It's a lot, 400 however many pages. But if you really read it, it's a very, very damaging and troubling document. And it doesn't exonerate him of anything. The fact that Mueller could not come to have enough evidence for a criminal kind of conviction level of evidence on conspiracy. That's what he concluded in terms of working with the Russians on the election. What did he actually find? He found that the Russians massively worked to interfere with our elections, and that the Trump campaign, his children and other people eagerly wanted them to, tried to work with them. I guess the symbol of it is him saying to the Russians, please hacker those emails. Get those emails. He wanted it to happen. Our enemy, another country interfering with our election. So the fact that it didn't, they couldn't convict him of a formal conspiracy, I guess we're supposed to take comfort in that. But the big thing is the obstruction of justice charges. Mueller didn't say there's not a lot of evidence of this. He didn't say I wouldn't go for any indictment of this if I was a prosecutor and he was Joe Q. Public on the street. He said sitting president can't be indicted. That's our policy. And if I went forward and said we're charging him with these things that would hang over his presidency, he wouldn't be able to govern. And therefore we have a policy of not doing that. I'm just going to put the evidence out there and leave it to the Congress to decide what to do with it. And what's the evidence? 10 different, not incidents like 1 minute,
Right.
10 different categories or streams of him obstructing justice, trying to obstruct justice, actually doing it in a way that would have been much worse in certain circumstances if his aides didn't stop him. If I've got a knife and I'm right here and you jump in the middle and stop me, was I trying to kill him? Was I doing something wrong? I mean, come on. This is the President of the United States. You read this thing, you wouldn't hire this guy to take care of a person or to, be in your house, trust him with your things or your money, you wouldn't.
No.
Honest.
Daughter.
Oh,
Heck no.
Larry, come on now. I would tell a bad joke. Any member of the family of any species. Anyway, so, but here's the thing. I just want you to think about for a minute. So, some people say impeachment, impeachment, and some people say no, no impeachment. You know, I think that whole idea is wrong. Here's what I think. May 2019 is May 1973. In April and May 1973, there was a sense that the President of the United States had done something really wrong. The public was not for impeachment. The Republican Party's Republican President, Richard Milhouse Nixon, you may have heard of him. Right, remember him? But what happened in late April of 1973 is they formed the Senate Watergate Committee. They didn't start impeachment hearings. There was nothing about impeaching him. They started these hearings, and they started to call witnesses and investigate. And different legal things kept happening. Remember, in the Mueller report, there's a number of, why is there so much redacting things? Because there's a number, he turned the evidence over to several different grand juries. There's gonna be other shoes that drop. More people charged in different aspects of this by different, federal prosecutors. So, just like back then, we were just handed a body of evidence. We need to hear from Mr. McGahn, right? Yes. Just imagine if he's on TV, live TV. Well, how did it feel to have your boss tell you to go fire somebody? Right. What was it, the public can't read 400 some pages of legalese, but when it's up on TV, we need to hear from Mueller, we need to hear from McGahn, we need to hear from others. So I said, and then it was in late April of '74, a whole year later, that they did the articles of impeachment, and it was on July 30th that they voted on him. He resigned 8 days later. So it was only 8 days between the actual impeachment activity and when he resigned. So I'm not worried about impeachment. I'm not worried about that word. My job, I took an oath to conduct oversight of the administration, regardless of the consequences. Do I think he committed impeachable offenses? Yes, I do. I think he's doing it every day with violating the emoluments clause. I mean, I get invitations. I get invitations to go to celebrate some big history, landmark of some foreign country at the Trump Hotel. Yeah. A foreign country. This is like exactly what the Constitution says, right? A foreign company making money, giving him money. I mean, it's outrageous. So I think he's committed impeachable offenses, but impeachment as an event or as something that happens has a political angle to it, right? We all get elected. Y'all elected me. There's a lot of people don't agree with me on a lot of things that got elected by other people. And we'd have to come together. That happened in Watergate because all the evidence was laid out before the American people. So my thing is, let's get all these people in here. Let's have investigations. Let's have hearings, testimony, and see where it leads. And in a way, it doesn't matter where it leads in the following sense. If we can get the facts and the momentum and he's impeached, I think everyone in this room probably think, well, that was justified. If it doesn't happen, we will have gotten the truth out to the American people. I think there's going to be a lot less people in the middle, a lot less moderate Republicans, a lot less independents who say, well, I don't care who he slept with, who he abused, who he whatever, he's my job, this is going well, my company's doing well or whatever, I'll vote for. I think, it'll hem him into his little base even more. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it. where I think it's going. But my focus remains every day on what can we do to create more good jobs and raise the standard of living of working people in Michigan's 9th District and elsewhere. And that's why I'm so focused more on living wages. We'll do our labor law reform bill to restore the freedom to form unions. I'm leading a freshman letter on NAFTA. This new NAFTA would be no good for us the way it is now without real enforcement of workers' rights in there. This new NAFTA that Trump wants us to vote on puts 10-year protection for biologic drugs in a treaty with 2 foreign countries. Mexico and Canada don't have anything like 10-year protection. You know how you can go over to Windsor or go to Tijuana and get drugs cheaper? The big pharma is putting in our treaties, they don't even want us to be able to do that. They want to raise the cost of prescription drugs in all 3 countries, just so they can make more profits. So we are really fighting against this. I call it NAFTA 1.5 because I don't think it's very different. And the number of cars that are being made in Mexico is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
It's doubled in the last 8 years, the number of cars assembled in Mexico. Okay, I wouldn't complain if they were being bought in Mexico or they're being shipped, to Central America and South America. I don't mind if they build cars in China to sell in China or India to sell in India, but 4/5 of these cars come back here and they expect us to buy them. And I'm sorry, no, I'm not. I'm old enough that I remember the real Chevy Blazer from my child. The one. This new one looks cool, but I mean, there was a lot of years when they were kind of not that great. But those ones, Chevy Blazers and the Broncos from the late 60s and the early 70s, those were cool. I'm not buying a Chevy Blazer that's built in Mexico. I'm buying cars that are built by UAW workers in Michigan and elsewhere in the United States, and we are going to fight for their jobs, no matter what. So that's what we have. Anyway, let me just close by saying how important this caucus is. Did you all see? It wasn't that long ago the latest report on the African American population growth in Oakland and Macomb?
No.
Yes.
I got it right here.
Please read.
It's been a more steady, gradual thing in Oakland. Still huge. Just look at the shape of it. I mean, look, I don't know all y'all that well. I don't know if everybody's from here, but those of us over a certain age that are from here, I mean, the segregation in Metro Detroit was almost complete, 100%. I mean, 8 Mile, the movie and the song was called, I mean, that was made for a reason, right? And when I grew up in Berkeley, there wasn't one black person in Berkeley, Michigan.
Right.
Wasn't one. We were the only Jews, my family. There was a couple Chaldeans. That's what diversity was. Honest, it was just nothing. Okay, but so this is the Oakland County shape. You don't have to see the numbers. There was basically nothing,
What's the time horizon on that?
Goes back to 1900. You can't even see anything. I mean, by 1950, 18,000. Of course, there were a lot less people altogether. 18,000 people. 1980, still under 50,000. But for 80 to 90, it went from 48 to 78. From 90 to 2000, 78 to 121. 2010, 162,000, and 170,000 by 2017. That's Oakland County. But Macomb County, as will surprise you, is even more stark.
Wow.
Look at that. Wow.
This is the numbers. I'm gonna
Share
share this. Even in 1990, so 1990, there's 77,500 African Americans in Oakland. What did I say, 90? 10,000 in Macomb. 1/7, 1/8.
Wait, what year is that?
1990.
90.
2000, from 90 to 2000, it doubled from 10,000 to 21,000. But from 2000 to 2010, after white flight from Detroit, black flight from Detroit, essentially, right? Because of the schools largely, right, and job situation, but from 21,000 to 72,000, and then by 2017, not another whole decade, just 7 years, from 72,000 to 103,000.
Wow.
I don't think the average people around this whole region in the world know that that there's a substantial African American population in Macomb County, and it is radically underrepresented in politics.
It really is.
Wow, boy, do we know.
I mean, no, just the facts.
Better word.
I'm just saying the facts. I'm gonna leave this with you, but so I think that the work, our work is to transform, and that happens in a lot of communities, right? You got a lot of these immigrant communities, they move in and it takes them a while, but, the African American community has been in this region forever. And so I think it's the work of this club and the excitement of seeing people running for office is, now people are here, they have to have their political power and their seat at the table. So I am behind you 100%. Anything I could do to partner with you to keep that momentum and make that happen, I really want to do it. And you can say, but that's not, your job is to go to Washington and vote on stuff. No, that's part of my job. My job is to build a political movement that can end Reagan's America. So we have progressive politics where we all love each other, we all treat each other with respect, and people can have a good job, health care for their whole life, and retire in dignity. We don't want more than that. That's all we want. Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much. I'm done.
You have a few minutes?
I have as much. I'm not joking. I'll stay here. Yes.
Okay, and
I'll be right back.
one of the two things I'd like you to continue to fight for me for,
Yes.
Social Security. I
Yes.
don't think let that go.
Retirement,
But
yeah.
I need my Social Security and health care.
Yes.
So those are two things that I would like you to keep.
So Social Security, I'm an original co-sponsor on John Larson's bill, I don't remember the number, from Connecticut, to strengthen Social Security and make it solvent for another 100 years.
Okay.
Our bill would do that. And it would, I forget if it eliminates the caps or just greatly raises them. I don't know if you know this. You pay Social Security tax on income up to $128,000, I think it is right now. Above that, so Dan Gilbert, those super rich people, he makes like 100 times that. He doesn't pay any Social Security tax on 99% of his income. The richest people, right? Now, so it takes that off. And now I think I don't mean to pick on Mr. Biden. I really don't. If he's our nominee, I'm fine. But he, in the past, has been for fixing the Social Security problem by raising retirement age and reducing benefits, to tighten up the ship. That is not necessary.
No.
And in fact, where I want to go is, if you look at our situation, it used to be that a lot of jobs had pensions. Real pensions. I'm talking about pensions, not a 401k that if you put money in, you get something. Because when you're in your 20s and 30s, I'm sorry, you ain't putting money in. You have to have it be forced. I mean, it comes out as a real pension. You don't pick every week or every month. It's in there, and then you get an actual monthly, a payment for the rest of your life after you retire. That's a real pension. I think that, and why did pensions disappear? Wall Street.
Stabilization was one.
I'm going to tell you this one thing. The unions. They attacked our unions.
Yes.
Today, at the peak in the late 40s and early 50s, 35% of workers in the private sector were in unions. Today, 6%.
That's sad.
So we have no bargaining power, But anyway, here we are, and in a way, I think we've learned it'd be better if our benefits were not tied to a particular job, because you want to be able to go to a different job.
Right.
And it's only construction workers and a few others who have this great thing, portable stuff. They go from job to job to job, and their pension goes with them, and their health care wherever they go. So we got to go back to the 19th century when they created that. So in my view, Sherman, we should have regular Social Security, and then essentially another tranche on top of it that would be, the money be in the same place, that your employer would have to participate in, and they would have to match some of what you would put into it. so that you could have, that we could turn it into a real retirement plan. Because now, even if you know, your Social Security, for most people, is not enough. You know, or if they live on that alone, it's tough, right? So I guarantee you, I will fight to the death to support Social Security and even expand it. All right, now let's talk about healthcare. I want your all straight feedback on this. I am both, and I want to know if you think this is kind of indecisive or something. I don't feel like that. I am super strong for Medicare for all, and I'm also super great with strengthening, fixing the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
And why? Because right now, I think it's been a huge mistake of the Democratic Party not to have a real visionary, exciting, what we really believe in and what we really not want vision of healthcare, and that is Medicare for all. I want healthcare to be a right for everybody from when they're born to when they die, and I want not just your bodily health care, I want full parity for mental health, drug treatment and all that, vision and dental, all in there. Because if you don't have teeth, you're not healthy, right? So if you can't see, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
If you need mental health care, you need mental health care. And it shouldn't be a stigma.
Right.
You know? So I am for Medicare for all, proudly, 100%. And I think, but right now, we're not getting it right now, right? So I'm also very active in trying to strengthen the situation. For example, I just introduced a bill. I don't know, Kyle, did we introduce it? Or we are introducing it. I think we introduced it this week. Anyway, we came up with some cute name for it. But anyway, it's a bill that prevents drug companies from doing a little dipsy-do at the last minute to keep their patent
Oh, right.
for another
Right.
10, 12 years, 7 years, whatever it is, right? What they do, like, I know this from my kids, if they have acne, I got 4 kids, right? So if they have bad acne when they're 14 or 15, right, you take them to the dermatologist, they prescribe something, $300.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't pay $300.
Right.
What is it? Oh, it's 2 things that you can get both of for $5, and they put them together. And no, I'm not joking. It's $300. I'm like, give me those 2 things. I'll take A plus B, and they can put both of them on their damn face. You know, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Seriously. But they tweak it to try to get another 10 years, whatever it is, where nobody else can compete. There can be no generics. So I introduced it. So I'm trying to both keep things practical and fix them, but also really drive towards a vision of Medicare for all. And I'm going to tell you, President Trump is still trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act altogether. And that would take health care away from 500, 600,000 Michiganders right now.
Yes.
And it would cost a lot of jobs. Yeah, so I don't know who's next. But go, yes.
I just wanted to piggyback on your Medicare for all. As a financial planner, I can tell you that any client that's over the age of 58, wants to retire, but they can't because of health care. So if they had Medicare for all, or the ability to buy affordable something, they would retire or go do something that they want to love. So I always tell people, if Medicare is so bad, why does everyone want it? Like, they can't wait till they're 65. So that's one thing, but also it's decoupling it from your employer, and it would be innovative, to say the least. So many people would go out and start new companies and ideas. It would unleash economic power that I don't think the Democrats talk enough about, the economic power that this would be to our country.
Let me give you one other example. I so agree with you. That's not, it's not my job as a member of Congress in Washington. It's a state issue. Auto insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but now there's a lot of problems with our auto insurance. But the fundamental reason it's so high
Don't make us upset.
is actually healthcare.
Healthcare.
Okay, just stick with me for a minute. If we had true Medicare for all, and no matter what happened to you in a car crash or anything else, you were covered, and it doesn't matter. Well, that would be totally taken out of our auto insurance premiums. It wouldn't be part of it. It would just be insuring your car, your guilt if you smash somebody else up, and fixing up your car, or if it got broke. That's it. It would be so much less. So it would solve so many problems in society. Yes, Larry.
My question is going to be about Ford, but first,
About
Ford, I'll come back
Ford
to
Motor
that.
Company.
But first I want to tell you that I really support both of your positions, they don't contradict. Alyssa Slotkin describes herself in a mostly Republican district as a radical pragmatist. So I like we gotta get to Medicare for all, but we're not gonna get there with this Senate. We do what we can, and so I like fixing affordable care. We'll get something, and it may not take till 2020 when we win the Senate, but we'll get what we can get now pragmatically, and we are on our way to Medicare for all. So I support both of those. Now, yesterday, from one of your colleagues, I was told that that Ford has adopted Trump's guidelines. And one impact of that for prescription costs is insulin for Ford employees used to cost $250 a month. Now it costs $2,300 a month. And I don't know the details of that. That's just what one of our really good colleagues said. And Ford and GM shipping all the jobs out, closing down plants here. What can Congress do to not just fix healthcare there, but really kind of fight what the big three are doing? Meanwhile, Mary Barra makes $22 million a year.
Yeah, well, I don't think they've changed the cost of insulin for the UAW members, because they can't do that unilaterally outside. And it's a contractual matter. And I think all the health care is through the VIBA, it's not called the VIBA anymore, but what, got spun out, and they created a trust to pay for the health care, and I think the company's kind of out of it, but I'm not a big expert on that. But the whole insulin thing is a great example of why we need, a different healthcare system.
Now
Because
Ford says it's not a preventative drug. And your colleague said, yeah, it prevents death.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very mad at GM in particular. Ford isn't building as so many cars or transferring so much production to Mexico. They're not all the same, but they do have some, and they say they're going to build an electric car there, and I'm really mad about that. My main focus right now on fighting that is in NAFTA. I think that our big chance is to force a renegotiation of the labor protections and the labor standards and some other things, so that they're not so incentivized. But when you put the NAFTA that they negotiated together with their tax thing that they passed in late 2017, you are taxed at literally 1/2 for your production out of the country as you are for your production in the country. That's what the Republicans did in December 2017 in their tax bill. So you pay double the taxes to produce a car here that you do to produce it in Mexico for taxes. That's crazy. So it's really, we got to change that, and we've got to fight against this NAFTA. That's what I'm focusing on right now. Yes.
I gotta say, thank goodness, or thank God, my dad was in MP training in '46. They discovered he had diabetes, and it was covered by the VA. So they mailed it to him every day. He died at the age of 45. But he worked his way up. He was in charge of all of the NATO supply depots for all of the NATO tanks in Europe. He set that all up before he passed away. Maybe you could clear this up for me. I know that something to do with the way the labor's organized in the auto plants, or not organized, and I don't know if it's by the government, that they have just one labor organization that keeps the prices of the wages down in Mexico,
yeah.
Or if they're just illegal down there in the auto plants. Could anybody clear that up for me?
Yeah, so
'Cause I
they
know
have,
that's one of the
in
reasons they go
Mexico, there's been this system for decades that's tied into the governing party that until recently, where they negotiate protection agreements. So they're supposedly formally speaking, they're union contracts, but they're negotiated before there's any workers. The workers never elect anybody. They don't ever see a contract. They don't have any say. They don't vote on a contract. Nothing, and that determines their pay and benefits. And they are complete poverty wages. So wages and benefits have not improved in Mexico since NAFTA. And we think around here we focus a lot on cars, as we should. But let's take another area that's unionized fairly heavily in the United States at the industrial level. Bakeries. I'm not talking, you're some fancy bread you buy or I'm talking Wonder Bread and Sunbeam, whatever all those big brands, big brands, or the store, it's in Kroger, but it's obviously made in some big facility. BCTGM is the union, Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco, and Grain Millers Union. Okay, there's only 10 people in America that know that, but I used to work at the AFL-CIO, so it used to be my job to work for, I still know, Dave Durkee's the president, I still know the guy, he was the president when I was at the AFL-CIO. Great union. They close their industrial bakeries here. They create new bakeries in Mexico, state of the art, right? The technology in the building and the facility is just as good as here. And they have these protection contracts. And there's 3 wage levels. 90-some cents an hour, like $1.07 an hour, and $1.17 an hour, something like that. Even worse than the auto plants, which pay maybe $2-3 an hour, which is completely outrageous as it is, right? So it's in aerospace, bakeries, auto, a lot of different industries, and NAFTA has just killed us. And it basically said we're creating a whole system where the U.S. is blessing and Canada is blessing and coming together with Mexico to purposefully create a system where our companies can take their money anywhere they can to do stuff the cheapest possible and expect us to buy it. And it pisses me off, and we have to fight against it. But it's those protection contracts. And let me say one last thing. There was a progressive government elected in Mexico recently. And for the first time, the president's name is Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. They call him AMLO, A-M-L-O, AMLO. He's a great guy. He's progressive. Here's the problem. Number one, they have term limits in Mexico. You get 1 6-year term as president. So in 6 years, there could be a president right back to the other way. So we have to have it in a treaty. We can't just say, oh, he's progressive now, so let's just have, weak language, and we can trust him because he's a good guy. We can't do that, So that's where we're at. Yeah, she has a question.
I had a question.
Okay.
Might have it up 20 times.
Is there any conversation being discussed in regards to something that is really concerning to me, is the protection of our food? You find so much being recalled, and normally it's recalled months after people have, either someone has to get sick or die before they make a recall. It used to be that I felt as though our food was safe, but now since so much of our food is being produced outside of the United States, I'm really leery of buying things. And I'm worried about children, we went through the situation with the water and Flint. I don't want that to be a situation that we have with food. And is there any discussion, I don't hear anyone talk about, is there more stronger protection, our food being inspected, our food being checked better than what it has been lately, because we're getting so many bad products.
I feel like we're going backwards on this. You know what drove the discussion was the Trump shutdown. And the Trump shutdown had a lot of people inspecting drugs, food, and other things, and coming in, and Customs and Border Patrol from, like stuff, berries and all that stuff, food made in Mexico, and it comes in here. And they were not essential. So you were at your own risk with your food, because I guess it wasn't essential that your food be safe, And so that, I hope, helped Americans realize a little more how the incredible role the government plays in keeping us all safe in ways that people just take for granted, like the safety of what they find in the supermarket. So I think it's a real problem, and it's a question of whether we're going to fund these agencies adequately. And I think Senator Stabenow deserves a lot of credit for standing her ground as ranking member of the Agriculture Committee in the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans. And so the ag bill that we got was pretty good, but his budget calls for cutting these, food safety people, and we need more, not less. So we're gonna have to fight to add, to fully fund that, and stay tuned, because that story's not, in terms of the next budget, that's not fully written, but I agree with you. All right, sorry, sir.
I'd like, let's go ahead, and the reason why is I want to finish on time. Thank you, Congressman Levin, for that. I appreciate it. Not to put Congressman Levin on the spot, but I want him to know that one of the things the caucus is going to do is not only get people elected, but we want to see for elected officials is your staff has inclusion. When there's internships and other things available, hopefully let us know, because we'll do the outreach to universities in the area and different things like that, because the way we can get people really interested in politics, I think at a young age, if they can do internships, if they can do different things, whatever it is, paid or unpaid, whatever we can, because someone like Kyle Paulette, who worked on an issue for me before I retired out of the Department of Defense for a year, that takes expertise, and you have to learn that. That's just not something you show up and do.
Well, let me make a little announcement. Next week,
Monday.
on Monday, wait, in 2 days. What's Will's last name, do you remember? I'm gonna just tell you this straight. We had one last spot to fill in our district staff. And it was to do casework. And we were interviewing people, and they told me, okay, well, we have this person. I said, can you survive? Can you keep going without hiring somebody for a little bit? And they said, yeah. I said, find an African-American person. And we did. This young man walked into our office from Warren and I forget if he lives in Warren and Sterling Heights, but his whole life he's lived in Warren and Sterling Heights. He went to Oakland University, and he's just doing a master's of public administration at Wayne State. He's worked as part of his studies. He worked for City Councilwoman Rachel Castaneda Lopez in Detroit. And now he's working for State Senator Stephanie Chang as an intern. He's worked at the city level, the state level, as an intern, while he's doing his studies. He's starting on Monday, and I could not be happier. But I totally agree with you, and I want you to hold us accountable for that. I do have to tell you, we got to get a little quicker in our interns. We just offered 2 internship positions. I don't know if Kyle knows this, for our DC for the summer. We were too slow. They both, and there was a diverse couple of women, they both had already taken other internships because we were too slow. So I was like, okay, got to get going.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, thank you
But we
for mentioning
appreciate
that.
it.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Congressman.
Yes.